evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is McKaylee. I work at Tattered Cover Bookstore. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us here this evening. Thank you for supporting local independent bookstores. We would not be here without you. The last 50 years, as it is Tattered Cover's 50th anniversary, which is a huge deal for a bookstore. So thank you so much for being a part of this virtual community. Hopefully very soon we'll be able to be together in our space, smell the books, have traditional book signings. We're hoping to do that maybe this year, fingers crossed, we'll see. But thank you for being a part of the virtual community as it is right now. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. For those of you who may be joining us that are outside of the Denver metro area, Tattered Cover is a local independent bookstore with 4 locations in Colorado. And we've been around for 50 years, as I previously stated. And we're soon gonna have 5 locations, which is amazing to think about. We're opening our brand new children's location in Stanley Marketplace in Aurora, for those of you familiar with the area. And right now, one of our stores is mid-move, and we're hoping to open that store only 4 blocks from the original location in McGregor Square, sometime late May, early June. Construction is crazy. That's how it is right now. So stay tuned from that on our social media or sign up for our email newsletter to get updates. But our other 3 stores are open. You can come in, visit, as long as you're wearing your mask over your mouth and your nose. You can come shop and browse for about 90 minutes or so. But if you're like me and you want to shop online, stay in your pajamas, you can do that. We can cover all your bookish needs at tatteredcover.com. Also on tatteredcover.com is our events schedule. My goodness, we have so many events coming up. And I say that as someone who's helping run 99.9% of them. It's going to be so exciting. We have some amazing ones up and coming, like John Grisham is tomorrow for any of you mystery fans out there. And we have artist and cartoonist Liz Climo, who does amazing graphic novels that are set to poetry, set to humor. She's so talented. Definitely check that out, and other events at tatteredcover.com. I want to let you know also that closed captioning is enabled for those who might want it or need it for this event. There's a black bar down at the bottom of the screen and a button labeled CC on it. Click that button and closed captioning is enabled if you want it or need it. And so now I want to introduce our guests tonight. I'm very, very excited for this new collection to be out in the world. It's going to be wonderful to hear from our poet tonight and our guest, Ana Flores, who is in conversation with him as well. So a community builder and connector at heart, Ana Flores is living her passion as the founder and CEO of #WeAllGrowLatina, in the first network of Latina digital influencers and creators, founded in 2010 with a mission to elevate the voices and stories of Latinas through the power of community. The company's annual #WeAllGrow Summit was named by Forbes.com as one of the 19 conferences every creative should attend in 2018, and then again on the 2019 list. And then we have our author of the hour. Diego Perez was born in Ecuador and immigrated to the United States as a child. He grew up in Boston and attended Wesleyan University. During a silent Vipassana meditation course in 2012, he saw that real healing and liberation were possible. He became more committed to his meditation practice while living in New York City. The results he witnessed firsthand moved him to describe his experiences in writing. The pen name Yung Pueblo means young people and is meant to convey that humanity is entering an era of remarkable growth and healing when many will expand their self-awareness and release old burdens. Diego's online presence as Yung Pueblo, as well as his books Inward and Clarity and Connection, which we're celebrating tonight, are meant to serve those undertaking their own journey of personal transformation. Today, Diego resides in Western Massachusetts with his wife, where they live quietly and meditate daily. And it is my honor to welcome Ana Flores and Diego Perez. And we're gonna have them turn on their cameras here. There she is, look at Ana.
Here we are.
Wonderful, and Diego's coming on as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me and us. Yeah.
Oh, it's our pleasure, truly. I know that I am not alone in how excited we are. We have some amazing viewers already active in the chat. And I just want to remind everyone that chat that you're currently talking up in and typing to other fellow fans is where we're going to be answering questions for the audience Q&A portion of this. So if you have any questions, keep those questions and comments coming in the chat, and we'll be doing that later in the hour. But for now, I turn it over to the pair of you.
Thank
you so much. Thank you so much, Michaela. Diego, amigo, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Hi, mi hermana. Thank you so much for spending this time and just helping me usher in this new book. It's been such a journey so far, and I couldn't, think of another person, because you've meant so much to me in my journey, and the opportunities that you've given me have really meant a lot. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. You're kidding me. It's a joy for me to be here to share this space, to have a conversation with you, as I enjoy our in real life conversations. But you know what? I'll take this. This I will take with so much gratitude. And because we're here to celebrate you, right? We're here to celebrate you. We're here to celebrate clarity and connection. But first of all, I want to hear, I want to know about you this last year. How have you showed up to this moment of pause, right? Which is a perspective and a way of seeing what has happened this last year with the pandemic. This forced pause for the collective to truly go inward and face with courage all of that fear and all of that anger and all of that unsolved pain that we've been carrying with us. And each of us has had a different process in how we've navigated and ridden this wave. So how has it been for you and your writing process?
It's been really powerful, honestly. As an individual, I think it helped me see the value of meditation and how much I've gotten from Vipassana as a practice. And honestly, it's helped me show up during the hard moments, especially in the very beginning of the pandemic. It was just my wife and I were living in New York City, and the situation there was just wild. We didn't know anything about what was going on, and there was so much fear everywhere. And I definitely felt the fear inside of myself. But one thing that became really clear was, like, how can I simultaneously exist with the reality of this moment? Like, oh, I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling anxiety, but without making it worse, without letting it dominate me, without letting it take over. And that's something that the pandemic really just helped me build this deeper quality of the mind. And honestly, but it was difficult. I imagine it was difficult for everybody in some way or another. And different family members of mine have gotten sick, and we've actually had family members pass away as well. So it's been real. It's been a very real experience. And I think a lot of that realness is captured in the book, because I actually, the final edition of the book was made in December, and that's what's gone out. So that whole period, especially the pieces about relationships, the pieces about loss, they're really coming from somewhere. So I hope that people find them useful.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. And at the same time here, I want to just go directly into clarity and connection, right? And thank you for offering that perspective of how it was for you last year and how it also came into your writing in this book. That is your second book.
Yeah.
That goes further than your first one, inward. And as an extension of that work, and to really gaining more clarity and harmony, as you said, in relationships. So I want to read one of the two poems in the prologue, which I feel just really beautifully ties it all together.
Sure.
Okay. Should I go for it, or you want to read it?
No, you go for it.
You weren't ready. Okay. So the biggest shift in your life happens when you go inward. You step in and observe all that you find with acceptance. The love you bring lights up your self-awareness. You start seeing how the past is packed into your mind and heart. Patience, honesty, and observation start the healing process. With time, intention, and good healing practices, the past loses its power over your life. You continue the process, stepping in, feeling, understanding, and letting go. And then you start noticing the results. You are not the same anymore. Your mind feels lighter and develops a new, sharper clarity. You start arriving into your life and relationships ready for deeper connection. So to me, it feels with this poem that you cover it all, from the moment of going inward to doing the work to recognizing self-awareness, to recognizing everything that's in your past, the work that has to be done. But then you break it down into patience, honesty, observation, the healing process, and time and intention, and stepping in, understanding, and letting go. And then it's like all these layers of this process that I feel that we tend to want to oversimplify,
Yeah.
Yet those of us that are committed to the process know that it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of consistency and a lot of showing up. But that eventually the payoff is that clarity that you mentioned and that deeper connection in your
Right.
relationships and in your life. So can you tell us more about where you were in that stage in your life when you received this clarity and you were able to make these connections, not only with relationships, but truly with the ultimate relationship with yourself, to be
Yeah.
able to gift us this clarity and connection?
um, I'm learning from, like, a lot of it is from my own direct experience, where
Mm,
especially in the beginning, before the healing, like, I was really far away from myself. I didn't know myself, and a lot of my energy was placed into trying to run away from my emotions as fast as possible. And this took on a very nasty development where I just ended up developing these habits that were incredibly unhealthy. And I saw pretty immediately that my relationships were pretty superficial. And that was
mm,
tied to the fact that I was just far away from myself. I didn't know myself. I didn't want to admit how much sadness and pain I had been carrying. And once I, like, hit my personal rock bottom, and that's just, like, for my personal story, because I think people, when they sort of go into their own healing journey, it's the starting point is very different. It's not that everybody has to hit a rock bottom. But when I hit that moment, I realized, like, how did I get here? How did I end up with such bad habits, so sad, so full of anxiety? And a lot of it was because I was lying to myself. And the moment that I started really adopting and accepting honesty into my life, being honest with myself
mm,
specifically, that helped me just start getting closer and closer to myself. And, there was a period where I was really focusing in, like, how can I pay attention to my mind? How can I pay attention to my emotions? How can I make sure that I'm not running away? And pretty quickly, there was a turnaround. And this was even starting before meditating, where I saw that there was, like, a little bit more love coming out, and I could have a little bit more attention for the people around me. And immediately the connection was clear. It was like, oh, the
mm,
more you know yourself, the better your relationships become. And especially if you are able to cultivate that relationship with yourself, then that's going to open a lot of new doors for the people that you normally interact with, especially close family members, especially with intimate partners, and especially with really close friends. But it's from there. And then I saw that, once I started meditating, and once I started having a daily meditation practice, and once I, kept putting time into it, the relationships just kept getting deeper and deeper and much more fulfilling. And when I think about now versus the time when I was, like, in my own moment of chaos, it's like day and night, and I have a bunch of things to work on. I'm not a perfect person at all or anything like that, but you can see the results. And it's like, I see the results in my own life, and I know a lot of other people around me who have also taken on this journey. They see the results in their lives, that, yeah, they can connect a lot more deeply now.
And you mentioned honesty, and actually you write a lot about radical honesty.
Hmm.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it means, and that it's a term that's been floating around for a while, and
Mm,
but I like to, the freedom of, like, being a writer is, like, you can take a word and, like, give it more perspectives. And when I think about
mm,
radical honesty, is like, how can I be completely and utterly truthful with myself, not necessarily with other people? It's good to be honest with other people, but how can you fully be honest with them if you don't fully know yourself first? So when I was really noticing that, oh, when I would feel pain or feel tension in my mind or feel some sort of sadness, that there was that sort of urge or craving to run away at that moment. Instead of running away and trying to find something to just, like, fill me up with pleasure and avoidance, I would stop and just sit with myself and just, like, pay attention to what's happening there, and ask myself, what's going on. And that felt like these steps of radical honesty just, like, started the whole healing process.
It's so crazy that followed by radical honesty comes courage, right? Because one thing is asking those questions, seeing them, being self-aware, and we're going to talk about self-awareness because you dedicate the whole first part of your book to that. But showing up with courage to what you to the answers that you get.
Yeah, and it's scary, because, like, that courage is a very necessary component, because you go in there And there's so many things that are in there that are suppressed, right? That difficult things that might have happened in your childhood or while growing up or through heartbreak or, just all the difficult ups and downs of life. It takes courage to go back in there and sort of travel through your own inner forest and just see like what's actually happening inside of you.
Your own inner forest. Okay, I like that one. So in page 39, and self-awareness. So you say self-awareness is noticing the rhythm of your thoughts, feeling when they are clear and when they are out of sync, knowing when to take them seriously and when to let them go. Not every thought is valuable. Most are just the sounds of impulsive emotional reactions. Pretty simple, but you really break down self-awareness as intentional action, right? As something that is active and not passive, meaning that it requires time and patience and dedication and a commitment to that self-awareness. Can you describe how it shows up in your own life?
Yeah, I think there's one particular thing, and I actually wrote about it the other day, that I try to really take notice of is like, there are these moments where you'll have your first immediate reaction when something difficult happens. Someone says something you don't like, someone does something you don't like, and then it's like this roar of the past that just occurs. And I've been realizing that that first reaction is not the thing that you should be measuring yourself by. The most valuable thing is what comes after that. So like when you give yourself that moment to pause and you give yourself that moment to like feel, how should I deal with this situation, as opposed to just jumping into it, that second response, like that's what's so much more valuable. That's the real measurement of your growth, because that first initial reaction, that's just your past showing up again, because that's like, okay, that's the way that I've reacted over and over again. Of course, when I see a similar situation, that same reaction is going to come up. But instead, if you're able to take that moment, notice what's happening inside of your own mind and inside of your own body, and then give yourself a moment to see, okay, how can I deal with this in a way that's, honors my authenticity, but is also compassionate and skillful. Yeah.
Is there I know that Vipassana is a huge part of your life, and you're very committed to that, right?
Yeah.
How is that tool, how does that practice help you with this finding the pause, recognizing the pause before the reaction?
Well, the practice, it literally just builds presence. It builds presence, it builds equanimity, because oftentimes we're caught in this loop of automatic reaction. We feel something that we don't like, and we react to it with hate or negativity or some sort of aversion, or we feel something that we do like, and immediately we're trying to crave it. We want more of it. So when you meditate Vipassana, you're not only observing reality as it is, but you're cultivating this quality of equanimity where you're trying to just feel what's happening without having any craving towards it, without having any aversion towards it. You're just trying to take it in and just observe it. You're practicing observing. So we do sit down and practice that ability to observe. But then once you're not on the cushion anymore, you're basically developing a part of your mind, and you can kind of take that with you wherever you go, so that when difficult situations do happen, you don't just react. You're like, okay, wait, let me properly observe the situation, and then I'm going to thoughtfully, mindfully respond after that. But Vipassana has just radically changed my life, because I was, I was like a mess before, and now much less of a mess now.
Well, that's beautiful. That we all need to find which is that healing practice that speaks to us, right? And that we can eventually commit to. And it doesn't have to be one. It can be tools in your toolbox that help you for these moments in life when you need it the most. And so I know I've asked you this before, and I'm going to ask you again, because it's still mind-boggling to me, because I know in Vipassana, you can't, obviously it's silent meditation retreat, and you can't write either at any time, right? So I'm like, I can't even imagine me, that I'm like, I get an idea and I'm like immediately want to start producing and executing. I can't even imagine how many thoughts and beautiful words and poems you have to let go of as you're there.
I have been very seriously practicing that, just trying to let go, because sometimes the creativity will just bubble up as a way to stop my progress in meditation. It's like my mind knows, like, oh, you enjoy writing, so let's give you creativity, and then you won't focus on meditating anymore, because the mind will fight you. It'll fight you it's like it's a bit of a wild animal. And what you're trying to do is, build qualities of mind, build qualities that help tame the mind and make the mind more effective, and much more loving. But initially, it doesn't want to do that. So I put my foot down and I try my hardest. And something that I tell myself is, if it's meant for me to write this poem or this essay or to talk about the subject, then at the end of the retreat or later, it'll come back and I'll write about it. But that's something that's really important to me, is I don't meditate to be creative. I meditate for my own healing, for my freedom. I meditate to make progress in the development of my equanimity. And then something that happens very naturally for all people, like whether you start kind of, working with therapy or working with different forms of meditation, when you find the tool that works for you, because everybody has very different conditioning, so you should find something that meets you where you're at. You do find that when you let go of that density of the mind, you do have more love and more creativity that comes up. And whether you're an artist or, a writer, musician, or whether you're a creative person or whether you are a mathematician or whatnot, you find that all these people, like, they can bring this new energy and new creativity into their work, and it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, and it's so much tied again to letting go of expectations and results, right? Like you said, you're meditating not so that you can write, but meditating for your own healing, and that then delivers the results. I mean, in a society that we're so driven to create and have results. Okay, so on page 31, one of the most important qualities to develop in life is determination. At some point, you just have to put your foot down and say, I am going to move in this new direction, and no person or situation is going to stop me. Great transformations need a beginning. I just love the energy on this one, right? You really switch it up. So I was like, I really want to know, when or what was this beginning that led to a great moment of transformation for you? When did you put your foot down?
Thank you for highlighting that one. It's funny because the book has been out for about since Tuesday, and seeing people, get their copies. And then it's really interesting seeing the pictures that they're taking of the book and what pieces are kind of coming up. And that's one of the most ones that comes up the most that people have taken pictures of. But there was a key moment, I think. So I started going to Vipassana courses, and I did a number of them. I did 5-ish courses before I started meditating every day at home. So I would go to the retreats, but the return of the investment was immense. I hadn't found anything else that was helping release so much tension from my mind. So I knew if I put more time into this, I'm going to get a lot more out of it. So why don't I invest in my well-being? And I had to just put my foot down, and just, because it's funny, we are very busy people. We live in a very busy time historically, but at the same time, there's also ample time wasted. So it's funny that now, I meditate 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. And trust me, I still find time to waste. It's not like my time is very perfectly budgeted, So but there came a point when I was living in Brooklyn and New York City where I was like, okay, I really want to do this. I want to take this seriously. And I'm going to meditate these 2 hours a day, no matter what. And it felt like an experiment. I wanted to see how this would change my life. And then I just, did it no matter what craziness happened that day, or, any drama. I was like, I'm going to get this done. And that type of determination really helped. I think it actually helped me produce my first book, because then I was able to take that type of energy and be like, okay, no matter what, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to make it happen. And the same thing for the second one. So I'm grateful I put that foot down.
So are we. So I definitely, I know that you're from Ecuador.
Yeah.
And me that I have to ask about how your culture and how your heritage and how your family, how does your ancestry show up in your work?
Well, Pueblo all day, I think so. In Ecuador, right, the word Pueblo has a lot of different, meanings in the way it's viewed, and it has a lot of different types of backgrounds. But in Ecuador specifically, it refers to the impoverished people, people who are struggling, the vast majority of the people. And I always felt connected to that because that's where I come from. I grew up incredibly poor, very, very poor, especially when we moved here to the United States. It was hard. It was a very difficult situation. My mom, she worked cleaning houses. My dad worked in a grocery store, and we were, constantly trying to, my parents were constantly trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent, how they're going to put food on the table, how they're also going to take care of us and keep us safe. Because at the time when we lived in Boston, I'm talking like the early to mid 90s, it was a pretty dangerous place. So all of it was so new that these like sort of Ecuadorian values that like my parents really carried with them, like, treating their friends like family and being very giving. And even though they had very little, like there's this one moment, a friend of mine told me about it when he came to this country and with his family. He told me and my brother how my parents, they showed up, and these were people, they were just becoming friends at the time, but they showed up to their house with like a trash bag full of clothes for them because they had just arrived from Ecuador, so they had like nothing. And I remember trying to think about when they arrived, and I was like, damn, I was like, that was a time when my parents were incredibly poor and they still found an ability to like, okay, here, this is, for you all. And I don't know, that those types of moments, I think, when I think about how I've experienced trauma, the trauma is the structural poverty that I've gone through. But I was incredibly fortunate with my mom and dad. Like, they're beautiful people, and they've really, they have the things that they're working on just like everybody else, but that like staunch Ecuadorianness, I think I get so much from it. And, and it's funny, like now today with my mom, how much she's really happy with the way things have turned out with me being a writer, but she's always bringing it back, like, like you're doing something big for Ecuador, like it's, for our people. So it's really nice hearing that.
That's beautiful, because that's at the end of the day what you represent, right? They left to bring you a better life.
Yeah, totally. Huge sacrifice.
Huge sacrifice. So I'm gonna read one more, and then I think we can open it up to questions. So get ready. The future, you will thank, okay, let me do this again. The future, you will thank you for listening to your intuition, for upholding boundaries that supported your inner thriving, for saying no to things that did not align with your values, for taking the time to build your self-awareness, and for staying true to your vision. Are these all the things that you are proud of for yourself?
It's something that I'm always trying to remind myself of, is like, what am I doing right now to build a better future? Because your present actions, they will have a result. Like your present actions will have a fruit, so what are the seeds that I'm planting right now? And oftentimes it feels like I've had to teach myself how to say no, especially when, you have different opportunities coming up, or trying to figure out like, how should I spend my time? What should I put my effort into? What are my real true goals? In those moments, it's like, well, if you really want to achieve something and you have very specific goals, then you're going to have to say no to a lot of like minor goals, or a lot of like different paths that you could divert on. So just understanding that like this like constant building of self-awareness, this, ability to say no to things that are not right for you, and then a very serious yes to the things that are going to help you, like building good habits and all of that, that's going to pay off in a really big way. So in some ways I do look back and I'm like, man, I'm so glad that the Diego that existed in 2014 made some good decisions, because it's helped me be, where I am now. And I think overall the most important thing that I've gained from this whole journey is just like a mind that is not constantly in havoc. It was like my mind was just so wild and unruly before, and so full of tension that I think I'm so grateful that the past version of myself was able to just sit down and meditate. Yeah.
It reminds me of something a good friend told me just a few weeks ago. Hi, Michaela. I moved to Mexico with my daughter in October. LA was a mess. It was horrible with the fires and everything going on, right?
Yeah.
And we just got back 3 days ago. We were in close to the beach in Playa del Carmen. But she was reminding me, she's like, because so many things happened while we were there, and it was just beautiful. Everything transformed. And she was like, just make sure that you say thank you to the Ana who made those decisions, right?
Wow.
And that's exactly what I was hearing you say right now. So thank you.
Thank you too.
That was amazing. Thank you both. I know that we're eager to get to audience questions, but all of us and a lot of people in the chat were encouraged and very excited about both of you sharing your wisdom with us. So thank you for that wonderful conversation. I do want to encourage you and those of you watching right now and in the chat to ask any questions that you may have. And one of the ones that got started that was early on was, how can we successfully begin meditation?
That's a good question. So you live in a good time to meditate. There are so many avenues, and you have to want to kind of ask yourself, like, what are you ready for? So there's like a lot of very sort of light forms of meditation or different aspects of mindfulness that people can get into, from a variety of different apps. But then there's also like much more serious forms of meditation that are, very old, come from like the style of Vipassana that I meditate in. It's a really old sort of Burmese style that originates from the Buddhist teachings. So it's been around for thousands of years, but it's hard. It's not easy. But the results are huge. So putting in the effort to, get those results it's worth your time. But if that's not something that calls to you, then, check out the other stuff. Like check out the lighter forms of meditation if that's something you're interested in. Because no matter what, something that a lot of meditations have in common is that they build present moment awareness, right? So your ability to be present with what's happening in this moment, and that gives you so many benefits as opposed to just swimming around in the future in your mind all the time or swimming around in the past all the time. You're not going to be able to, be here with what's happening right now, and you're going to find a lot more joy, love, and happiness while you're here in the present moment. That's where those things actually take place, not in the future or the past.
I like that. That's a really good way of putting it, of don't be swimming in the future or the past, and anchoring yourself in the center and in the present. So what is your daily routine, if you don't mind sharing with us, to have more awareness?
Sure. I think I try to have this like compassionate sort of like constant checking in with myself, where I'm trying to sort of measure like how spicy do I feel that day. Like that's the term that my wife and I have been kind of developing, because when you're consistently meditating, you are in this like deconditioning process where you're constantly working on letting go, constantly working on not only building your peace but also releasing the burdens that you carry. And some days you'll feel great and other days you won't feel so great. So one thing that my wife and I practice is like just letting each other know, okay, like I actually don't feel that good right now, and I'm going to let you know, so that so that we don't get into any unnecessary arguments, and we're already kind of aware of where each other is at. And that level of but that comes from just checking in with myself daily. And then my regular routine outside of that, it starts with like I wake up and I meditate an hour in the morning, and then I go about my day, either working or going on, doing exercise, and then like working more, taking my lunch break, and then wrapping up the day with another hour of meditation. So I think living in a way where you are sort of just checking in with yourself, even in a very direct way, like, how am I feeling right now? And then giving yourself an honest response, I think that's going to build a tremendous amount of self-awareness, and can actually stop a lot of points of tension from happening.
Wonderful. Lots of people are saying thank you for the advice. They're very excited about it. And I think this next one can actually apply to both of you, of what other poets and writers inspire you. And I think Ana, you can touch on that too, of anybody who maybe has influenced your work. But I want to ask Diego first.
Sure. I'm curious about Anna's response too. I think for me, I've been really heavily inspired by Hermann Hesse. That German guy, he was onto something. He was so moving, specifically in Siddhartha and also Narcissus and Goldman. That book is, I think, like a treasure of humanity. It is so beautiful and touches on so many different profound elements of the ups and downs of life, and like trying to discover yourself. And is also just like one of the most like lyrical, beautifully written books that is seamless from one page to another. And I've read a lot of, not too much, but a good amount of Jiddu Krishnamurti, which has been really helpful. And And there's also books by Bhikkhu Bodhi, where he tries to like sort of give you a straightforward understanding of Buddha's oldest teachings. And those have been really valuable, especially one called In the Buddha's Words. I found that's been, especially like the suttas, they're not intentionally poetic, but they're very direct. And I've definitely gained a lot from reading those.
Absolutely. Ana, do you have anybody you want to add to our reading list other than Diego himself and Claire?
Other than Diego himself? No, I have to admit that I haven't been reading as much as I would like in the past few years. And I really am focused on Latina writers. And that's really, you know, I am very much, I practice what I preach. So right now, the book that I have in my nightstand that was waiting for me as soon as I came back from the trip is, it's a book by Patricia Engel. But you got me in the wrong moment right now, so I can't remember the name of the book. It's beautiful. But yes, those, I'm like Marcela Serrano, Isabel Allende. Like I'm all about the Latina women, the classics and the contemporaries.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense to me that, of course, you're reading other authors. Like, this is what you do. That's huge. Well, awesome. I want to, we have so many questions here. We're going to try and get through them as many as we can. I really like this one. For those loved ones in our life who are not inclined towards meditation and mindfulness, how can we best help them in their journeys?
Yeah, I think that's such an important question. One thing that happens a lot of times is that when we find something that works for us, we get really excited. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine, like, for us to let other people know, like, hey, I'm doing this amazing thing and it's really helped me a lot. You might be interested in it. But if they don't show interest in it, that's also fine, because something that is a real important lesson in letting go and sort of detaching and letting people have their own journey is realizing that people will come to the inner journey in different moments, and different sort of situations will happen where they're like, okay, like I need to do some sort of self-analysis. And, you know, one thing that has been really valuable is just like seeing that, okay, meditation has helped me a lot. But for a lot of friends and like different family members, therapy has been critically important, you know, has helped them so much, like one-on-one therapy or even working with a psychiatrist. Like there are a lot of things out there that can help you make progress. So if you are taking your inner journey seriously, I'd say do your best to like model the sort of, you know, let them see that, okay, you know, and not in a way where you're like showing off or anything like that, but just like live the fact that you are transforming, and then the results will speak for themselves. Because like, especially for people who know you really well, they're going to be like, something's up, like this person is behaving differently and they look happier. So if they get curious and then they may themselves be inspired, like, you know, what are you doing? Tell me more about it. I might want to try this as well.
Absolutely. This one's a really interesting one too. Have you ever thought about dipping into other genres like self-help rather than poetry?
Yes, I've thought about other genres a lot. I am currently working on a book that is going to be in the self-help category, but I'm not trying to really put out specifically a guide or anything like that, because I really don't see myself as a teacher, but I'm very happy to tell you my reflections. You know, I'm very happy to share, like, you know, this is what I've learned about change, or this is what I've learned about how personal transformation affects global transformation. So I am working on a book that will have like a lot of personal stories about myself, but would also combine a lot of these ideas that I write about that you see a lot in the essays in Clarity and Connection. I'll go, you know, try to go even deeper in that third book. But I've also been like, I haven't really talked about this, but I've been playing with the idea of like jumping into fiction, because I feel like there's so much space to work inside of, and those really powerful stories like The Alchemist and Siddhartha are so moving and they affect people so much. And I wonder, you know, if I tried to write something like that, like a powerful, like 150-page story, like what that would look like and what I would try to bring to it. So maybe in the future, if things align.
Well, we'll welcome you back, maybe in person, and we'll happily have you for that. And I saw Ana nodding her whole way too. I'm certain that, like, yes, we would read that.
No, I can see it. I can see it. I can see the book in my hand.
Yeah.
So we're going to do 2 more questions before we end this evening. But this one I think is really great about how do you balance your writing process with your meditation practice? And do you ever find yourself, when writing, it feels like meditation? Like how you focus or anything on it, you know?
That's a great question. Yeah, first and foremost, like if I were to tell you like the way that I see myself, it's as a meditator first. So writing comes second. And even like the way that I structure my year, like I will intentionally, when a new year begins, I'll line out like, this is, these are the meditation courses that I'm going to do. And they're the meditation courses that I do get the first dibs on my time. So I'll kind of spread them out throughout the year. And then after that comes, writing projects and events and all that other stuff, because I think if I don't make my personal growth and well-being my top priority, then everything else is gonna like not be that good. So I've been pretty adamant, like this is, and meditating is what works for me. So it's like meditating comes first and then everything else gets figured out after that. And for me, like, because I am pretty like deeply settled in meditation as a practice, like the writing versus meditation are very pretty differentiated. Like sometimes there are moments where pieces will come very clearly and they'll just like arrive in my mind and I'll write them down. And then there are other moments where I'm trying to like understand patterns that I'm seeing in myself or other patterns that my wife is like telling me like, oh, you should write about this. So it's like a mixture of like where all the pieces are coming from. But yeah, sometimes they're intellectual and sometimes they're spontaneous.
No, thank you for that. One person did say, I will mention, we were talking about other genres. She said, I would love to see a beautiful children's book with your words or poetry.
Oh, get out of here. I was literally talking to my editor about that today. And I was like, I think it's going to take a few years. But I was like telling her like, maybe in 5 years, we can like put out a really solid children's book that focuses on like emotional intelligence building.
That would be incredible. There's amazing illustrators out there that are just hitting the nail on the head and really some unique talent coming out. And with your words, I think it would be a bestseller.
Thanks so much.
It right now. But this last question, we love to end here at Tattered Cover on this question. It's actually for both of you. For Ana, for you as a reader of Clarity and Connection, and Diego, for you as the writer. And I want to remind everybody that they can get their copies of Clarity and Connection at tatteredcover.com. We actually have signed book plates. So if you order through us, you actually get a signed copy, a signed book plate with your copy, which is very exciting. But this last question here is, so interpret it as you will, but what did this book, Clarity and Connection, teach you? And Ana, I'd love it if you could start, and then we can end with our author of the hour here.
Oof. So many things, right? Like I said from the beginning, like he really breaks it down so beautifully. Everything that I feel that I've been learning in my 40, almost 9 years of life, in very snackable doesn't diminish it, right? It's just very easy, simple to understand, but with such a profound depth that you can really integrate it into your life as something that is actionable, but also something, again, like coming back to this level of commitment, right? It's not just these beautiful words. It's not just what Diego has learned and so kindly is sharing with us and his knowledge, but it is something that if we commit and if we decide to really, truly go inward and honor what we find there, again, with that courage, that we can really, really just make a difference in the level and the quality of our lives, but not only ours, in the collective, right? And that's exactly where we need everybody to be showing up right now. But it takes work, and I'm so glad that you continuously say that, Diego, because we're in an era where so many of these messages are being oversimplified, where it's easy to get on Instagram and just put words out. But it's not just the words, it's actually the practice behind the words, the intentionality and the congruity of that. And this celebrates that.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that's I'm really glad to hear that you found it useful in that way, because it makes all the time. And that leads up to my point. I think like writing this book has really taught me not to rush important things. And that's just been like the key, like 2020 lesson for me was like, if it's something that you want done well, take your time. Like, take your time, do it well, be intentional. Don't let other people rush you, even if they're going to get upset that you need a little more time. Um, and that's been kind of like my motto. And even into 2021, that lesson kind of went over, and I made sure to actually like drop certain projects, because I'm like, okay, first and foremost, like, how can I be most of service? It's going to be through writing. So like, focus on writing, write something that's useful for people, and then, the other things will come after that. And it felt important to just like focus and take your time.
What a wonderful gift that you've given us, not only in tonight, but one that we can carry with us with clarity and connection. I know that Ana agrees, and as do all of these viewers here tonight. So thank you for clarity and connection. Once again, everybody can get their copies at tatteredcover.com and get your signed copies as well. I want to give each of you the opportunity to remind people who you are, where they can find you online, and anything else that you want to say before we end tonight. And once again, Ana, I'm going to ask you to start, and we'll end with our author here, Diego Perez, also known as Yung Pueblo.
Well, I would love to connect and continue the conversation. You can find me on Instagram as LA Flowers, which is really La Flowers, Flores in English. La Flowers. I don't sell flowers in LA. But we can definitely I'm an intuitive entrepreneur. That's really how I'm describing really what I do. I really lead with love, lead with intention and through my intuition. And I'm a community builder at heart. So I would love to connect with all of you. And thank you so much for having me and for giving me the chance to sit down with my dear friend.
I also have to shout out that I've gotten the great honor of getting to go to Anna's conference, We All Grow. And let me tell you, it's the coolest thing like that I've ever seen. So if you ever get the chance to go, and when we get out there again post-pandemic, like, you should try to go, because it's really amazing and so deeply empowering. But yeah, so you can find, I'm on Instagram a lot at Yung Pueblo with the underscore between Young and Pueblo, and there's no O in Young. And then I'm also on Twitter and on Facebook with the same Yung Pueblo. And my funnest new project has been this newsletter that I've been working on, and it's been super fun. Just having a little more flexibility in space, and also not like, having to think about an algorithm or anything like that. If you sign up, you're gonna get it. It'll go right to you. And I send about like 3 a month, and it's just been so nice. And I think of it as my personal writing project, where like, I'll sit down and I'll just write whatever comes to mind, and it feels like a really healthy exercise. And other than that, you can check out my 2 books, Clarity and Connection and Inward. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. And I'm McKaylee with Tattered Cover Bookstore. I want to ask you two to hang out while we just close out here. This has been celebrating Clarity and Connection by Yung Pueblo. We're so excited to have you both here. Thank you for your time tonight. And you guys can get your copies at tatteredcover.com or at any one of our locations in the Denver metro area. Check out upcoming events that we have as well. And for some of you out there, it might be dinner time. So think about ordering from a local mom and pop shop, a local business. We are here in your communities, and we wouldn't be here without you. We really appreciate the support that you've given us over the past year and the past several years. So thank you all again. Stay safe, everybody, and happy reading. Thanks all.
Bye, everyone.